As Lord Daigo Keijimitsu's child is about to be born, he visits the priest in his shrine who says that by coming here he's already left the path of Buddha and the gods and asks him to not go through with what he intends before trying to run away from him, but Daigo slashes at his back from behind. Once he's disposed of, Daigo goes forward and sits down in front of the devils. He says he wants to make a deal, explaining that his land has been struck by bad luck for a long time and tells them to take anything they want from him but bring good times upon his land. Now as his child is born, a huge thunderbolt strikes their house, and he happily goes to take a look at him before the patron tells him that he has neither limbs, nor an eye or nose, and not even any skin. Maddened by his happiness, he tells her to dispose of it in the lake, but she places him in a boat. Nice. Before being eaten by a monster that an aged samurai swiftly slays. As Dororo is selling authentic goods, a trio of rough men accuse him of betraying them and taking their goods, but he says it's their fault and runs away from them before being eventually cornered on a lakeside. They start badly beating him up, but stop when a creepy guy looks at a mound of garbage floating on the lake before it transforms into a monster and devours the three men. The samurai starts fighting it and lures it to a bridge before breaking it down and drowning the monster into the lake with the debris. Dororo goes forward to thank him and gives him his prosthetic arms that had been thrown away and confirms that his face is a mask before the samurai starts clutching it in pain. Meanwhile, Daigo goes to visit the shrine and finds that one of the demon's statues has been cracked as Dororo apprehensively asks the samurai what he is. As they're walking, Dororo tries to talk to the samurai, but he doesn't answer and keeps moving, so he takes out the mask that fell from his face, saying that it fell off his face when he defeated the demon and the skin he's wearing now is his real face. The samurai catches some fish out of the lake and tries to eat it, but is stopped before Dororo cooks the fish on a fire and hands it to him. And it's explained that the man, Hyakkimaru, who was granted with superhuman abilities, couldn't see not hear Dororo, but could see a person's soul, which is why he let Dororo stay with him since he was the second person to ever do that. The next day, they journey to a village where the stand-in chief asks them for help to slay a monster, to which Dororo cheerily agrees. The next day, the man Tenkiki takes them to the chief woman Bandai, a lady whose legs were apparently cut off. She calmly greets them, but Hyakkimaru draws his sword against her, after which the villagers throw them into a storeroom where another old man is sitting who says they threw him here in his sleep, and finds out that Hyakkimaru can, like him, see the soul of a person. They discover a hidden veil and go through it to arrive at Bandai's lodgings, where Hyakkimaru immediately starts fighting it as she transforms into its demon from and slithers into the forest, where Hyakkimaru swiftly kills it. Later, as he's walking back with Dororo and the old man, he senses his disquiet and writes down his name, which the old man reads out to him before Hyakkimaru suddenly cries out in agony. As a long queue of heavily injured people stand outside Dr. Jukai's house, his assistant Kaname checks if their movements are working fine as they praise Jukai's work, calling him someone almost as good as Buddha. One day, Kaname sees a crying mother with her child whose arm is cut off and asks if they'll be able to save him and if Dr. Jukai will help, to which he hurriedly takes the child in his arms and takes him to the clinic where they bandage him up. Later, as the patients are walking back with Kaname, she regretfully says one mustn't believe in rumors so much. Kaname eventually returns to the clinic and asks Jukai if he worked for the Shiba clan that killed his father, and after learning of the truth, tries to kill him but stops and throws away the prosthetic leg he'd been given before leaving. Sometime later, Jukai found a boat where a boy without any skin, eyes, or nose and made him a prosthetic body. Later, he learned that the demons seemed to follow him and trained him how to fight and gave him the name Hyakkimaru. One day, when Hyakkimaru killed a demon, his prosthetic leg was suddenly thrown away as an actual one formed in its place, making Jukai realize that someone had made a deal with the demons in exchange for his body. He tells Hyakkimaru to venture alone now since he can't help him and recover his body at all costs, before Hyakkimaru bids him a farewell and leaves. Now, the old man explains it to Dororo as they realize that Hyakkimaru's gained the ability to feel pain. As a girl is praying, she spots Hyakkimaru soaking in the rain and tells him to come inside, but Dororo tells her to not bother since he can't hear them and asks what she was praying for, to which she replies that she was praying for her brother who's been gone to war for over 2 years to come back. Suddenly, they notice a bleeding man walking towards them before falling to the ground and going limp, so Hyakkimaru and Dororo run towards where he came from and find an entire group of dead people lying on the ground before a man with a supposedly demonic sword starts fighting Hyakkimaru, but he dodges and throws him down from the hill and the sword away from him, which Dororo picks up before being possessed by it. As the girl goes to look for them, she recognizes the unconscious man as her brother and takes him to her house. Meanwhile, the sword leads Dororo towards the village where Hyakkimaru, recognizing its bad soul, confronts him. As the girl's older brother wakes up, he patiently waits for the sword, remembering how he had been forced to kill so many people with it before it had fully taken over him and had made him kill everyone, including the lord that had forced him in the first place. Hyakkimaru easily throws the sword away from Dororo before the brother, Tanasu, wields it, and starts dueling Hyakkimaru, who breaks the sword before killing him. But this time, he has a smile on his face as his sister, Osashi, cries over him. As Hyakkimaru stands near them, he suddenly grows real ears and the ability to hear. As Hyakkimaru and Dororo are sitting near a fire, he suddenly covers his ears with pain from hearing so many things at once, after which Dororo ties a cloth around his head to muffle the sound. Suddenly, a demonic bird swoops down on them and Hyakkimaru tries to fight it, but is unable to for some reason, so the old man/priest who was coincidentally passing through kills it for them, after which Dororo explains Hyakkimaru's situation to him. The next day, Hyakkimaru runs into a girl in the lake who realizes that he can't see and takes them to her house, where she places wet rags on his fever-ridden head and shows them the war-affected kids she takes care of who force her to get some rest. As one of them is washing clothes, he tells Dororo that the girl, Mayo, works for the Sakai army during night to earn her livelihood. Later, the priest who left to look for a safe path in these dangerous times tells them of a place a bit far from here that will guarantee their safety, but the downside is that it's ruled by a strong demon they'd have to kill first. So Hyakkimaru and the priest head to its lair while Dororo decides to follow Mayo, who announces that she's going to take up a job for the opposing army so that they can live peacefully despite how dangerous it is. Mayo approaches a pair of soldiers and says she's looking for work, and when Dororo follows behind, he looks from the bushes in horror as the two soldiers force themselves on her body. As the priest and Hyakkimaru approach the pit, the insect-looking demon makes them fall in and they swiftly start cutting off its limbs and gaining on it, but Hyakkimaru starts gutturally screaming as one of his legs get cut off. As Dororo walks back silent in disbelief, he spots Priest holding up a worn-out Hyakkimaru with his leg cut off, and they take him to Mio's house together. As she arrives the next morning, she sees his injured state and quickly starts dressing his wounds as one of the boys. Take tells Dororo that they're going to build a rice field one day. Meanwhile, Tahomaru, Dago's son, asks to be sent to the war against the Sakai clan but gets denied by both his father and mother as he's riding away with his pair of guards. He wonders what the thing is that they've been hiding from him for so long. Mio sings Hyakkimaru's song since his ears don't seem to be hurt from the sound, and the priest leaves, bidding goodbye to Dororo. Later, Mio goes for work in an army camp and Dororo wakes up in the night but sees that Hyakkimaru is gone, which he notifies Mio when she arrives and leaves for the pit. As Hyakkimaru successfully manages to kill the insect, he and Dororo slowly walk back but notice a fire rising from Mio's house, so they hurry towards it and see that soldiers have killed all the kids as well as Mayo, who's close to dying. They tell them that she was caught doing lewd things at their enemy camp even though she comes to theirs as well, which is why she must be killed. Enraged, Hyakkimaru takes out his prosthetic sword and starts ruthlessly killing the soldiers one after one before calling out Mayo's name as Dororo stops him and spares the remaining one, showing him a pouch of rice seeds she was carrying, after which they bury her in the kids' bodies and leave. As Hyakkimaru and Dororo walk in a forest, they run into a female spider ghoul who runs away before being ambushed and decides to gather its energy for now. As the two come to a village, they find out about a rumored kidnapper and decide to catch it, while the spider buries itself into a cocoon and decides to change forms. The next day, a man spots a woman lying on the ground and takes her to his house as she decides to make him her first prey. He introduces himself as Yojiro, but she says she doesn't have a name, so he names her Ohagi and gives her food before leaving for work. A few days pass and Yojiro notes that Ohaji's weakening and says he can get her out of the village even nigh the tight security, so they silently leave that night, but are confronted by Dororo and Hyakkimaru, who accuse her of being the kidnapper, but he says he's the one and just helped people escape the Lord's clutches through a hidden path. They suddenly get confronted by soldiers who decide to catch the two, but they quickly escape and Yojiro shows her a thin path, but she says they're leaving together before he gets fired by some arrows. Angered, she starts fighting the soldiers and gets ready to kill Hyakkimaru as well, but gets stopped by Yojiro, who says she never has and never will kill anyone, after which the two leave to spend their lives together.
What?
As Dororo and Hyakkimaru unsuccessfully leave the village, he remarks how surprising it to see a ghoul fall in love with a human before he gets scared of a spider and lets it go, making Hyakkimaru laugh for the first time. A rain of ashes starts falling on a village. An old man recognizes it and quickly tells the villagers to ready a bride. Later, as Dororo and Hyakkimaru are walking along a mountain, they see a bridal procession going before a small child arrives beside them and tries to shoot it, but Dororo stops him, after which he explains that a dark cloud appeared over their village and started eating the villagers up, but stopped when they offered it a bride and comes back every few years to take another bride, and the villagers chose his sister to be the bride this time.
Perfect.
Dororo says he and Hyakkimaru know a lot about defeating monsters, so they knock out the guards and try to get the boy, Saru's sister, but she refuses to come before a black cloud descends over them and a centipede comes out of it and eats his sister, while Hyakkimaru helplessly stands since the cloud is its entire body, he can't locate it, and is for once truly blind. After Saru's done mourning his sister, he and Dororo go to defeat it, and their plan works for the most part, but is unable to defeat the centipede. But Hayakimaru arrives in time and is able to locate it this time by shooting an arrow at its body, after which Dororo climbs over it and tells him to follow his voice. Doing this, the two are able to successfully take it outside the cloud in front of the sun's rays and burn it, after which Hayakimaru receives the ability to smell. As they're leaving, Saru's sister, who was miraculously alive, gives them a flower and Hayakimaru calls his name, making him happy. As Hayakimaru is putting a flower close to his nose, Dororo tells him to not go around smelling everything just because he now can, so Hayakimaru turns around to continue their walk, but Dororo says he's getting dizzy and falls unconscious. Hayakimaru hurriedly picks him up and tries to get the farmers to heal him, but they can't understand what he's trying to convey, so he tries by speaking, but most deny any help before a nun takes him in and nurses Dororo. When he wakes up, he sees a red spider lily sitting beside him and says he hates them, remembering how his father led a very powerful band of warriors that attacked the samurais who had damaged their lives. Once they were attacked by a troop of samurais, so they had hidden him and defeated the troop, but now needed to move every once in a while and travel. Once his second-in-command, Itachi, had said that he could now go and live a long, peaceful life serving the Lord, but his mother had told him off for thinking of being a coward and traitor, so he replied that he was beyond all that before being punched by Dororo's father. Itachi had later betrayed them, and Dororo's father had been heavily injured, after which he had been attacked and killed in a fight. When Dororo and his mother had went to a nearby village for some food guided by an old man, they'd found Itachi in charge there and had only been given a handful of soup. Later, as Dororo and his mother were walking in a field of red spider lilies, she'd lain down and said goodbye before going still. Now, as he and Hayakimaru walk, he realizes that he must have found out that he was actually a girl.
What?
And asks if he knows anything, but Hayakimaru doesn't answer and keeps walking. Bakemonogatari, a crab-like beast, chomps down on a man and wrecks his boat. At the same time, the drought's getting worse in Daigo, and Lord Keijimitsu hears about the Asakura clan gathering on their border. He checks out the temple, finds more cracked demon statues before shockingly learning from the demons that his son, Hayakimaru's still alive, slowly collecting the different parts of his body that had been sacrificed so long ago by Daigo, and Tahomaru, Daigo's son, slowly realizes that his father is on the hunt for a baby. Later, Tahomaru, traveling with his crew Matsu and Hyogo, goes to a village where people are talking about a rumored lake monster that eats stray fishermen, so he takes charge and comes up with a plan, leading villagers in boats for a confrontation with a monster and manages to deal some damage. But it turns out to be much stronger and wilder than they had anticipated, so they decide to retreat for now, and Tahomaru tries figuring out what to do. He gets the villagers to build a trap, aiming to draw the monster into a shallow spot where they can drain the water and thus stop it from doing anything. Thankfully, the scheme works, and Tahomaru, Matsu, and Hyogo team up and get ready for a final face-off, but things start getting problematic and they almost lose Hyogo as the Bakemonogatari threatens to almost devour him. But then out of the blue, Hayakimaru shows up and takes down the beast, as Tahomaru is left scratching his head, wondering who this mysterious savior is.
Yeah, boy.
In Daigo's capital, Tahomaru discovers Hayakimaru's identity as they both arrive, as the city hosts a play portraying Keijimitsu Daigo as a formidable demon slayer, safeguarded by the goddess of mercy. Meanwhile, the Biwa-Hoshi seeks truth at the Hall of Hell, and Hayakimaru and Dororo explore the remnants of Fort Bamon and later meet the priest, coincidentally also there, who tells Dororo that he's going to go visit the shrine, the place where Daigo is rumored to have defeated the demons, but Dororo carelessly says they don't have anything to do with monsters long dead. Erected on the ruins of a village destroyed by Daigo, the shrine is rumored to be cursed by a demon, and they come across remnants of a timber wall where Asakura impale their enemies with arrows. During their exploration, they encounter Sukuroku, a young boy wanting to reunite with his family on the Asakura side. At the same time, Tahomaru's bodyguards report the Hayakimaru incident to Daigo, who realizes his son's survival and vows to eliminate him to be able to safeguard his domain's prosperity, disregarding his wife's desperate pleas. Tahomaru eavesdrops on their conversation and later runs into a disturbed woman present at Hayakimaru's birth before she tells him how the demons devoured everything but spared the boy. As Mike descends at Bamon, a nine-tailed fox demon emerges. While it attacks Hayakimaru, Sukuroku takes advantage of the chaos to cross the wall with Dororo in pursuit, leading to their capture by Asakura's sentries, before the demon is eventually repelled by a squadron led by Keijimitsu Daigo, who then slowly approaches Hayakimaru. Hayakimaru finds himself in a state of bewilderment as he fails to recognize his father, Keijimitsu Daigo, and is perplexed by the demonic red essence emanating from his soul. In response, Daigo commands his archers to target Hayakimaru, who hastily retreats. Simultaneously, Dororo and Sukuroku are confined in an Asakura prison alongside other captives from Daigo, and despite the situation, Dororo manages a daring escape. Within the compound, Tahomaru confronts his mother regarding his brother's fate. Daigo explains the pact he struck with the demons to safeguard their land as the tense moment intensifies when Hyakimura reappears, catching the attention of his mother and Tahomaru. However, Daigo coldly orders Hyakimura's execution. Tahomaru, appalled, grapples with his father's decision, prompting Daigo to ask whether Tahomaru would sacrifice the land to save his brother. The Asakura, aiming to start war, commence the execution of their Daigo prisoners at Bamon. This triggers the Daigo army's charge, drawing the attention of the Fox Demon. As the conflict unfolds, Daigo leads his forces, including Tahomaru, who reluctantly agrees to his father's command and duels Hyakimura. In the ensuing clash, Hyakimura shatters Tahomaru's sword, inflicts damage to his right eye, and ultimately vanquishes the demon, which is absorbed into Bamon. His mother arrives, seeking forgiveness for her role in Daigo's pact, and stabs herself, causing her Goddess of Mercy statue to topple Bamon. Survivors from Sukuroku's village appear, leading to a heartfelt reunion between Sukuroku and his mother. The Biwa Hoshi retrieves Hyakimura's mother's small, headless wooden statue of the Goddess of Mercy, its gentle green aura gradually fading as Hyakimura's initial journey comes to an end.